Hello everyone, it's June from Artsy Lolico, and this video is going to be a quick tutorial where I will show you how to paint this realistic watercolor style blue bell flower on Procreate. If you don't have the brushes yet, I provided a link where you can get them in the description below. You can use any brush you like, but it'll be a lot easier to follow along with the brushes I recommend. The sketch and the color palettes will be available for free. So let's get started. Make sure you are painting underneath the layers of the watercolor effect texture. I'm going to start off with picking a very light blue color, and we're going to use the wet on dry brush, and I'm going to keep the opacity to around 45% to get that hard edge effect, and I'm going to keep the size to around 100%. And as usual, I start with light, medium, and then dark colors. So I'm going to start with a light blue color. So I'm going to start with the edges of the blue bell and slowly working my way up, putting a lot less pressure in the corners to be a bit more precise. And I'm going to fill the areas of the edges first. And don't worry going over the lines too much, because we can always go back and erase them. And with the overlayers, we can also blend them so you can put more layers if you wish to do so. But for me, I like to keep it simple, fast, so I'm going to keep it with one layer at this time. And as you can see, I'm only going to paint the front 3 petals first, and then I will use darker tone colors to fill in the inside darker areas of the petals. And if you are enjoying these tutorials, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, where I'll make more videos for tutorials for you guys. Now it's time to add the mid-tone colors of the blues. So I'm going to pick a darker tone blue color now, and I'm going to keep the opacity the same, but I'm going to start with painting the top and the edges of the bellflower, leaving the lighter tone colors at the bottom of the petals. And I'm going to keep the center a bit darker pigment-wise because it creates a visual contrast that really enhances the overall attractiveness of this bluebell flower. Now moving on to the darkest tone color of the blues, I'm going to increase the opacity to around 80% and make my way down just like this. It'll give a nice contrast between the lighter blues and the darker blues, which really gives that bellflower effect. Now I'm going to finish off this process with adding the 2 petals with some dark blue gray color, because there's a lot of shadowing effect because it's inside the petal, creating that depth effect. And you can reduce the size if you're having difficulty with the precision, and you can zoom in if you wanted to be more precise in the edges. Now before we continue, I'm going to create a new layer and fill out the top of the vines of the bellflower. So I picked a light green color, and I'm going to reduce the opacity to around 50%, giving that hard edge effect. And I'm going to start from the left and make my way up and fill in the vines just like this. And you don't have to be so perfect with this process. I like to keep it a bit more abstract with the vines because that's not really the main focus of this painting. It's all about the bluebell flower. Now I'm going to go a bit medium dark color to add some value in it, and we're going to increase the opacity to around 50%, and we're going to create some shadows. I picked the lighter area to be on the right side, so I'm going to put more shadows on the left. Now we're going to start combining the layers to begin the blending process. But I am going to keep the bellflowers separate from the vines so I don't mix the colors up together. You can do this by pinching the layers that you want to combine, just like this. And now we're going to pick the moving blender and make sure that you have selected the layer that you want to start blending. And we're going to keep the size to around 20%, and we're going to combine the two pigments first. As I mentioned before, when I'm blending, it's a lot easier to blend two colors rather than mixing the light, medium, and dark at the same time. So I like to start with light to medium and then medium to dark. I like to keep the movement to a minimal when I am working with detailed areas to avoid smudging the area. Now once that's done, I'm going to move on and blend the vines of the greens. So select the layer of the vines and then we're going to start blending. And we're going to simply mix in the two-tone colors, just like this. And you can reduce the size if you are going over the lines and smudging the paper. Now moving forward with the two petals in the back, I want to keep the pigments a bit darker, but I'm going to drag some of the pigment down. And I'm actually choosing an indigo dark blue color to put more of a purple stain look. But we're going to use the fine line brush, and this is a very unique technique that I want to show you. And I want to keep the size to around 18 to 20%, but we're going to start from the top and bring that rich dark pigment towards the bottom. So we're going to fill the top part here, just like this, which is going to be a bit darker pigment than the rest of the painting that we have. And now at the bottom here, we're going to put the darker pigment where the center of the bellflower is, from the inside of the flower. Well, this technique I'm trying to describe is the wet on wet effect, where I implement darker pigment into the wet area and diffuses the effect, creating softer edges. And I'm going to do the same with the vines at the top, where I'm going to add some darker greens pigment and spread them. So pick a dark pigment color of green, and we're going to put some edges just like this. You can try any technique and see how it works, and you don't really have to worry because you can always delete or remove the layer at that time. Now we're going to use the regular blender, and we're going to pull the pigment down, spreading the pigment to the lighter areas, giving that gradient look, just like this. And the same thing at the bottom of the petals. It really creates that depth look while maintaining the colors at the same time. And we're going to do the same thing with the vines. And it's a bit darker than I expected, but the best part with the regular blender is you can actually start blending and pushing the colors in to make it a little bit lighter. Now once that's done, I'm going to start using the fine line brush again, but to create fine lines in the center where the sketches are. Now I'm going to reduce the opacity of the sketch to see through what I need to paint and use the fine line brush. Now I'm going to use this finger and hold the area to pick a pigment color that I want to pick, which is a bit dark, and reduce the opacity to around 40%. And keep the size to around 25%. And what this does is going to make it a bit more transparent, where the paint is not so dark and you can see through some of the paintings that we have in the back. In the middle of the sketch is just going to be showing that there are lines without giving too much dark pigment to the area. And we're going to start with the 3 big petals, and then we're going to fill in the middle part with lighter colors. And to make it a bit more unique, you don't have to make the lines in one straight line. You can break them apart to give that uniqueness of the bellflower. And don't forget the bottom of the petals here as well. And we can even reduce the opacity even more to add some additional lines to make it more organic. Now we're going to give that watercolor texture dry effect more. So we're going to pick a new layer and use the wet on dry brush now. Now we can get rid of this sketch because we don't really need it. And that's what we're left with now. And to achieve this wet on dry effect where the paint is actually dried up with a little bit of some stain at the edges, we're going to actually reduce the opacity where it's going to make the painting more transparent in the center while still maintaining the hard edge effect. So I'm going to reduce the opacity to around 38%, but we're going to follow the lines in keeping the center a bit darker. And just follow along just like this. As you can see, it's giving that hard edge effect, darker edges, while still maintaining the transparent center. And to give some more variety, we could even reduce the opacity even more and to add a little bit of that effect as well in the corners where the petals are turning. And we're going to do the same thing with the pigment from the vines as the greens, giving that nice water texture look of the vines as well. Now we could actually clean up some of the areas to make the edges a bit more cleaner. So what I recommend is combining all the layers that you painted so far. And we're going to pick the eraser tool. And we can use the fine line brush to erase certain areas. And we can clean up some of the areas of the vines where the lines kind of went over the area where I wanted to go. And I'm actually making the edges a bit sharper to give that nice flicking effect of the bellflowers. Now it's very rare to see a bellflower on its own, and flowers often look better in larger numbers, and it has that natural appeal where often flowers grow in clusters or groups. You can definitely create more bellflowers using the tutorial, but if you don't have the time and if you're short on time, you can just duplicate them, and I'll show you how. So go to your Layers tab and pick the painting that you just created, and just have to swipe left using your finger. So we're going to select Duplicate. Now the painting has been duplicated. Now select the selector tool on the top left corner and select an area away from the image to move it around, just like this. And now we're just going to repeat the process, and then you could actually flip it horizontally to make it a bit more unique and different as well. And there you have it. Realistic, simple bell blue flowers. And if you do have the time, check out our new website that is live right now, where we run promos, new products that will be released very soon. So stay tuned. And as always, have a wonderful day.